During the many stings Hansen has conducted over the years, many decoys were used in order to lure alleged predators to justice. One of the most popular decoys and fan favorites featured on the show and involved in the Hansen Vs Predator series of the show's history was nicknamed by fans of the show as Nervous Nellie.
Alright.
Sorry, I'm really nervous.
Oh, you gonna give me a hug?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry.
The entire crew of To Catch a Predator is no stranger to how dangerous the people who actually show up to these stings are. Even a situation with a small chance of something going wrong could be too much for any decoy. That being said, decoys have an important role to play during stings in order to fully prosecute the individuals featured on the show showing up to the location of the sting. It must be made clear in court without a doubt the subject fully intended to meet up with a minor. Not to mention it makes for great entertainment. A job like this would be mentally taxing on anyone. Some would even go as far as to call it traumatizing for the decoys involved. If you've been a fan of To Catch a Predator, you've seen exactly how creepy and downright dangerous some of these sickos are in person. This is why many of the decoys end up not returning after a few stings. Going back to the subject of today's video, her reputation as Nervous Nellie stems from her reputation for being incredibly hesitant and nervous around the potential predators. While we know specific details about where Nelly is now and how she's doing, it's important to mention that that was a name given to her by fans of the show, and we won't be using her real name out of courtesy for her privacy. Stay tuned though, because much later in the video, we'll go into detail about what Nelly has been up to and even how much money decoys made from taking part in the To Catch a Predator stings. The female HVP decoy Nelly has been characterized as appearing younger in person than she appears on camera. Nelly was only 19 years old the time she agreed to take part in the sting, with a bit of her covering her face every now and then cemented the idea that she was the perfect person for the job. Nelly was chosen to serve as the female decoy in the Fairfield, Connecticut sting in 2016 because she was studying for her theatrical major at a close-by university. This worked out great for both parties because she got experience for her career as well as helping Hansen put away some sickos while she's at it. It's a win-win. While most of the fans of the show remember her for being a little jumpy, she established herself as an extraordinary decoy, able to change her behavior on the fly and interact with some of the more dangerous predators featured on the show, such as Stephen Buchanan. She was even characterized by Hansen as a gutsy and confident decoy. Before we continue with the video, make sure to like the video for the YouTube algorithm and consider subscribing if you want more videos on what the decoys and predators from To Catch a Predator are doing now. While Hansen's comments paint Nelly in a good light, the only slight problem with her performance, according to the producers of Hansen Vs Predator, would have preferred to have slightly more interaction between Nelly and the suspects. Some of the stings ended a little short because Nelly had decided to end it a little too early. This is to make sure the episodes are all a consistent length for viewing. While only being a nitpick, it shouldn't take away from her amazing performance. Now that we touched on who Nelly is, let's shed some light on the goal of every decoy and why they're so important to have in these stings. Each decoy that is used in a sting has to follow a specific protocol for their own safety and the safety of the crew, as well as to ensure a proper conviction of an alleged predator. When the predator walks in, Nelly asks them what they brought for her. This is crucial for conviction, because depending on what the sickos brought, either in their car or for the decoy directly, can prove intent on what they planned to do with the decoy. Usually, the more things they buy for the decoy, the more ammunition the prosecution can use against the predator in court. During the stings, the decoys shift the conversation to a certain part of the room to where the most lights, cameras, and microphones are, just to ensure everything is being recorded as well. not to mention setting the stage for the famous "take a seat" quote from Hansen. It's important to note as well that the decoys are at no point to let the predators touch them. In the case of Nelly, 3 alleged predators were asking her for a hug. It's important to remember the cast and crew of To Catch a Predator know that these people are dangerous, and knew that if they were to allow even something as harmless as a hug, it could be the predator's chance to hurt the decoy. Another popular thing the decoys ask is the loaded question, "Is this your first time?" While this question seems harmless coming from the decoy, it can establish a pattern of behavior that prosecutors will certainly use to make sure the conviction they're given is as severe as possible. Lastly, and most importantly, the decoys help extract the maximum amount of information from the predator on camera. Usually, they'd ask something along the lines of, "What do you want to do?" This can be a silver bullet for prosecutors, just in case the predators decide to get a lawyer and change the story for why they would have been there in the first place in a desperate attempt to avoid conviction. After all is said and done, the decoy will make up an excuse to leave the room, where Chris Hansen does the rest of the talking, and where reality sets in. Now let's touch on how much Nelly likely made during her time on the show. In the sister show, How to Catch a Predator, Dan Schrack, one of the few male decoys, earned $5,000 for each shooting session. These sessions typically lasted 3 to 4 days, with decoys working for 13 to 14 hours per day. As a result, the decoys were making approximately $89 to $128 per hour. Now that we've covered pretty much everything on and off camera about Nelly's time on Hansen Vs Predator, let's get into where she is now. While much of Nelly's life after her appearance on Hansen Vs Predator has been kept private, after doing some research, we found out some details about what she's been doing since her time on the show. We work super hard on these videos to give you the most up-to-date and accurate information, so a sub to the channel and ringing the bell would be greatly appreciated. Before we continue, we also want to be respectful to Nelly's privacy and her wishes to no longer associate with the show, since she has not publicly acknowledged her time on the show since it ended. We won't be giving out her real name or any identifying information. We would also ask people watching this to respect her privacy as well. From what we found when we looked her up, Nelly seemed to be doing very well for herself. She's been focusing on her acting and designing career and is still very much into the theater scene and currently a theater technician and freelance designer, according to her website and social media. She also excelled in college and received a Bachelor of Arts from her local university. Additionally, Nelly was reportedly approached by Chris for a podcast interview for his Predators I've Caught series, but no deal has been struck as of yet, according to Chris. Nelly's contributions to exposing individuals seeking inappropriate relationships with minors were significant. Her work as a decoy helped to raise awareness about online child exploitation and played a part in prosecuting those who posed a threat to vulnerable individuals.